Alright, the first thing we have is an NST, which seems to be working, 12,000 secondary voltage. We have a spark gap, which is working. We'll see that in a second. We're using some Leyden jar capacitor array, which we know is not the best, but it's cheap and seemed to work on a instructable tutorial we saw. So we've checked the wiring, but just to make sure. One of the NST points is going to the spark gap, which is then going to one side of the capacitor array, which is the tinfoil side, and that's all been checked out and connected wireless. We know it's a solid connection all the way through. Then the wires from the inside of the Leyden jars are going to this ground bar, and then that ground bar is going underneath to the inner point of the primary. So there's our primary coming up. There's our primary coil spun around. Attached to the primary coil is our adjustment clip, which is then going back around to the other side of the spark gap, which is then plugged into the other side of the transformer. We have a spark ring around there. It's never sparked. We have about 800 coils on that PVC. We have this toroid. We are using a chicken wire ground. And when we try this, it makes a lot of noise. The spark gap goes, but nothing sparks. And also the fluorescent tube doesn't light up. So that's telling us that there's no electromagnetic field being generated. Turn it on here in a second. Alright, so here's the setup again. I put the fluorescent light up in the air. There's our toroid. And now we're going to plug it in. Water rippling in the capacitors, but fluorescent tube is not on. Nothing is happening. No spark. Nothing. And we did check and make sure the primary was connected all the way through. We, there were no breaks in it. So the secondary is a nice solid winding all the way at the top with no breaks. We don't see any arcs happening across it. I don't see any arcs at all. So we're at a loss here. It's probably these cheap capacitors we tried to make, but we felt we did a pretty good job with those. And again, we're basing this upon the design we found online. Thank you for any thoughts.